The book that we've been presented with to complete our religion ISU on was Contraception and Catholicism, What the Church Teaches and Why by Angela Franks, PhD. For those who aren't aware, contraception is the deliberate prevention of conception of impregnation through the various use of drugs, sexual practices, or surgical procedures.
Namely, that the integrity of the sexual act is a function of the coming together of its unitive and procreative dimensions. So when the sexual act expresses love between the married partners and remains open to the conception of a child, it has this integral quality. When, through a conscious choice, a couple introduces an artificial block to procreation, they're doing something which violates this integrity and thereby stands opposed to God's will. So
the book discusses the Catholic view about contraception and how it affects how we live life. For example, the choices we make. The Catholic Church is against the practice of contraception, except in the case where it is used for a medical reason. Otherwise, contraception is frowned upon in the Catholic Church because it does not promote God's love in God's image and promotes selfish behavior.
So the Catholic Church does allow the use of birth control for medical purposes. So if you have ovarian cysts and have to take birth control so that your ovaries do not burst and kill you, or that it gets so bad that it requires surgery, if you just take birth control, it prevents the ovarian cysts from growing and it completely solves the problem.
Everything in this world has a specific purpose. For example, the purpose of food is for us to survive by giving us energy. It is not to please the desire of our taste buds, although this is an added benefit. And so, the purpose of sex in the Catholic Church's perspective is for two reasons in particular. The primary purpose is for procreation or reproduction. Secondly, sex is for couples to bond and become closer in spirit through God's image. Problems start to arise when humans decide to go against reality and try to define it by themselves instead of discovering the universal truth.
We had this garage, it was called the big garage, and so it was more like a shed. And he would say, hey, go get a rake. And I remember specifically going to look for this rake and coming back and telling him, hey, it's not there, or I can't find it. And he responded, hey, look till you find it. And so I went back and looked for this rake, and I'd go back to him and said, Dad, the rake's not there. I can't find it. I don't know where it is. And he said, go back and look until you find it. And I'd go and I'd look again, and now frustrated, tears in my eyes. Dad, it's not there. The rake's not there. I'm tired of looking. And so he came with me and, of course, walked right to it and grabbed the rake and said, I thought you said this wasn't there. See, I thought my truth was there was no rake, but the reality was it was right there. And so you can live under anything and call it truth, but there's still a reality. There's still a truth. And if that truth is there, then we need to find it. And to say that it's not there is just to not know it.
In this case, this is selfish behavior, sexually transmitted infections, a higher divorce rate, and many other issues. Franks discusses fertility and how contraception may affect it with the use of condoms or birth control pills. Frank states that people feel these objections as much as they think. When those feelings are put into words, the words you will hear most often are usually freedom and control. Birth control promises personal control, the freedom to control fertility in order to have a career, a sex life free from fear, a horizon not hemmed in by the burdens of unwanted children, but open to anything one wants to achieve. Briefly, the answer is the future. We fear our personal futures would look like without contraception. What the author is trying to say in this passage is that oftentimes men and women fear pregnancy. They may not be mentally ready to take care of another human being. Maybe they don't want kids, or perhaps they might get pregnant by accident, and that's where contraception comes into play.
Our own terms, to redefine the sexual act, we have placed ourselves on a steep and very slippery slope toward a complete voluntarism, by which I mean we, by an act of the will, define what things mean. We define what they ought to be. The minute we start that process by interrupting the unitive and procreative dimensions, then we're on that slippery slope toward, well, we can define the sexual act any way we want.
Some people see contraception as a good thing, while others see it as cruelty. People who aren't ready to have a baby most often use condoms, which doesn't always go to plan. For example, condoms are 85% effective, meaning that there is still a 15% chance that the woman you are having sexual intercourse with could get pregnant. Less than 1 out of 100 women become pregnant while on the pill. Now, in our eyes, we might view this as being a norm, but in the church's eyes, it is wrong. In this clip, we asked a stranger how she felt about the use of birth control, and she informed us that she thinks it's a good idea because of how crazy the world has gotten, that people must use birth control so that they can avoid sexually transmitted diseases or infections and to avoid pregnancy. The church teaches us that we should trust in God and have faith that He has a plan for our lives. If you were to get pregnant, don't think of it as an accident or having any negative feelings towards it, because it could be God's plan for you to have children or even more than one child too. By reading this book, we have also came to an understanding that as human beings, we don't really appreciate sex for how sacred it actually is. Many humans don't understand the real purpose of sexual intercourse, which is to reproduce life, not just to get pleasure from one another. That's why it is called the reproductive system. The same way a car has its purpose for delivering us from point A to B is the same way sex has the purpose for us to reproduce life and bring in more human beings on this planet. Contraception is being ignorant to the plan God has for you and instead wanting to be in control of stuff like money and what we do with our bodies sexually. If we live our sexual lives fighting these realities, we set ourselves up for frustration and unhappiness. If we are open to these realities, we find the building blocks for a healthy, intelligent sexual life. Some might ask, if contraception is a problem, what is the solution? How can society live in accordance to God's plan and practice sex for its original purpose that it was designed for? Franks mentions in the novel of natural family planning. This is a way of following God's plan for achieving and or avoiding pregnancy. When used to avoid pregnancy, couples may engage in sexual intercourse during a woman's naturally occurring infertile times, such as during portions of her ovulatory cycle. Various methods may be used to identify whether a woman is likely to be fertile. This information may be used in attempts to either avoid or achieve pregnancy. This method is seen positively in the Catholic Church because it is receptive to reality and does not go against it. It does not use negative actions such as condoms or pills to satisfy the needs of avoiding a child. Even though the intention of avoiding a child is present in both cases, the ends does not justify the means when practicing contraception. For example, two people may have the same intentions of feeding their family. One person might get a job and the other person may rob a bank. Although the intention is the same, one should not be practiced because the action is used to achieve the intent. The action is used to achieve the intention is wrong. This is the same situation in the case of NFP and contraception.
What is your opinion on the book?
My opinion on the book is that although contraception may be useful to many, it prevents us from having many human beings reborn onto this earth to continue the life circle.
My opinion on the book is that everything happens for a reason, and everything in this earth has a specific purpose. And in order to live a happy, successful life, you have to live in accordance to reality in order to follow God's plan.
In this book, I learned that there's something called natural family planning. It's an alternative to birth control and it's 99% effective.